The clock was counting down, each second echoing louder than the last, hearts sinking with the numbers flashing on screens around the world. Laughter spilled into the cold night air, glasses clinked, fireworks waited impatiently to tear the sky apart with color. New Year's Eve is supposed to be a promise, a doorway into hope, a moment when everyone believes tomorrow will be better than today. But for some people, the final night of the year didn't open a door to light. It opened a door to terror, a kind of fear that didn't end when the fireworks faded, a kind of memory that followed them into every year that came after. These are stories whispered by survivors, stories carried in trembling voices, stories that remind us that even on the most celebrated night of the year, darkness can still find you. And yet, hidden inside that darkness are lessons strong enough to save lives, lessons written in fear but sealed with courage. One New Year's Eve, a young woman accepted an invitation to a house party that everyone said would be unforgettable. Music pulsed through the walls, lights flickered, people danced like nothing in the world could touch them. But from the moment she stepped inside, something felt wrong. It wasn't obvious. No screams, no threats, no danger she could point to. Just a weight in her chest, a strange silence beneath the noise. Her eyes kept drifting to a closed door at the end of a hallway. A door that didn't belong. A door that felt like it was watching her. Each time she passed it, the air felt colder, heavier, like the house itself was warning her. Friends laughed when she mentioned feeling uneasy. They told her she was overthinking, that fear had no place on New Year's Eve. She tried to ignore it. She smiled. She danced. She waited for the countdown. But as midnight approached, her heart began to race for no reason she could explain. Her hands trembled. Her instincts screamed at her to leave. And this time, she listened. She made an excuse, grabbed her coat, and walked out into the freezing night, just minutes before the year changed. Sirens filled that same street hours later. Police discovered a person imprisoned behind that locked door. A crime that would have escalated when everyone was distracted by midnight joy. That woman still says the fear saved her life. From that night on, she understood that intuition is not weakness. It is a gift. Fear doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And if you listen, it can pull you back from the edge before you even realize how close you were. Another New Year's Eve, a group of friends climbed a familiar hill on the outskirts of town, a place they had visited many times before. From the top, they could see the entire city light up at midnight. It felt safe because it was familiar. They joked, shared drinks, and waited for the sky to explode with fireworks. But celebration can blind even the sharpest eyes. When the countdown ended and the cheers faded, they turned back toward their car and froze. The tires were slashed. Their phone signals were gone. At first, they laughed nervously, assuming it was a prank. Then they heard footsteps behind them. Slow, deliberate. Someone had been watching them celebrate. Someone had chosen that moment of joy to strike. Panic surged through the group. But instead of running blindly into the dark, they huddled together, backs pressed close, refusing to scatter. Hours passed like years. The cold seeped into their bones. Every sound felt like a threat. When morning finally came and help arrived, they learned authorities had been searching for a violent offender in that area. Celebration had made them careless, but unity had kept them alive. They learned that joy should never replace awareness, and togetherness can be the strongest defense against fear. For a security guard working a late shift in a nearly empty mall, New Year's Eve felt like just another quiet night. He walked familiar corridors, listened to distant fireworks through glass ceilings, and waited for the year to change. At 12:07 a.m., the power went out. Total darkness swallowed the building. Emergency lights failed. His radio crackled and died. Then came the sound of footsteps that didn't match his own. Soft, unhurried. Too close. Every instinct told him he wasn't alone. He fought the urge to panic, forcing himself to breathe slowly, to move carefully. For nearly an hour, he navigated the darkness, feeling watched, hunted. When backup finally arrived, police discovered a fugitive hiding inside the mall, using the celebrations as cover. That guard survived not because the place was safe, but because he stayed alert when comfort disappeared. He learned that danger often arrives when you feel safest, and preparation matters most when you least expect to need it. There was a New Year's Eve train that never made it to its destination. Deep underground, the lights flickered once and vanished. The train screeched to a halt, trapping dozens of passengers in darkness. Panic spread faster than any fire ever could. People screamed. Some cried. Some tried to force doors open. Fear became contagious, feeding on itself. In the middle of that chaos, one woman stood up and spoke calmly. She told people to sit, to breathe, to hold hands if they needed to. She began whispering prayers, steady and soft. Slowly, the screaming faded. Minutes stretched into hours. But calm replaced terror. When rescuers finally arrived, they said her presence had prevented injuries, maybe even deaths. That night taught everyone aboard that staying calm isn't passive. It's an act of survival. Fear grows when it's fed, but calm can starve it into silence. In a small village, fireworks thundered so loudly that no one noticed screams cutting through the night. A family was attacked while neighbors celebrated the new year just meters away. Later, those neighbors admitted they heard something strange but assumed it was part of the festivities. Horror thrives in isolation, especially when people convince themselves it isn't their responsibility. Survivors of that night carry a painful lesson. Community saves lives when people choose to look out for one another. Silence, even unintentional, can be deadly. One man believed returning home on New Year's Eve would finally give him peace. Years earlier, that house had been the site of trauma he never spoke about. He thought enough time had passed, that a new year could erase old pain. That night, alone in his childhood bedroom, memories he had buried came rushing back with terrifying force. Shadows seemed alive. Sounds felt threatening. His mind turned against him, but instead of running, he faced it. He stayed awake until dawn, confronting the past he had tried to outrun. It was the most frightening night of his life, but also the most honest. He learned that the past doesn't vanish just because the calendar changes. Healing begins when you face what haunts you, even when it feels unbearable. During a brutal New Year's Eve snowstorm, a couple's car slid off a remote road and died. No signal, no shelter, only darkness and freezing wind. They walked for hours, convinced they wouldn't survive the night. Fear pressed down on them with every step. Still, they refused to stop. They prayed aloud, clung to each other, and kept moving. When rescuers found them at sunrise, barely conscious but alive, they said hope had kept them walking when fear begged them to lie down and surrender. Hope didn't erase the terror, but it gave them strength to push through it. Many people who survive New Year's Eve horrors say the same thing afterward. They say they never knew how strong they were until fear forced them to find out. Horror strips away illusions, leaving only raw truth behind. If you're still standing after fear, loss, or trauma, it means there is a resilience inside you that darkness couldn't destroy. These stories aren't just meant to scare you. They are reminders, warnings, proof that awareness, courage.com, unity, and hope can carry you through the worst moments of your life. As another year ends and a new one begins, remember that survival is not luck alone. It's listening to your instincts when they whisper, staying aware when the world celebrates, standing together when fear tries to isolate you, breathing when panic screams, facing the past instead of pretending it's gone, holding on to hope when the night feels endless. May this new year sharpen your wisdom, strengthen your heart, and guard your steps. May you be protected from dangers seen and unseen, guided through darkness, and reminded that, even on the scariest New Year's Eve, light can still find you, faith can still hold you, and courage can still carry you forward into whatever comes next.